welcome everybody. My name's Rajinder Dudrah. I think I know most of you, but some of you I don't know. So welcome, and I look forward to getting to know you over the course of the evening. I'm based here at Birmingham City University. I'm Professor of Cultural Studies and Creative Industries in the School of Media. And we're really thankful, first of all, to all of you for coming on this evening, on this Thursday evening, taking time out and being part of our invited audience. Yes, you were our chosen invited audience. And the reason for that you'll see. So what we're doing tonight is previewing or showcasing a research and development of a Russian play, Oxygen, which we'll say a bit more about in a minute. My colleague Noah, who I'll introduce, will explain a bit more. And we have adapted and translated that through hip-hop theatre via two amazing artists who are locally based to Birmingham and West Midlands, and of course you'll see them shortly, Lady Sanity and Stanza, Divan. Now this adaptation, this translation, is part of a wider project of which BCU, Birmingham City University, is affiliated by myself, and that is Creative Multilingualism. Creative Multilingualism is a 4-year project funded by the Arts and Humanities Research Council, and I suppose, in a nutshell, what we're trying to do with that project is to think about the importance of languages, not just in terms of their transactional or functional context, as important as that is. For instance, if we go to France or India, I suppose it's helpful to know how to exchange currency or order cups of coffee in that language, as important as that is. But beyond that, languages do much more. And hence our project, Creative Multilingualism, is thinking about the creative uses of languages across a number of different genres. So this is a multifaceted project, and it's a consortia project led by the University of Oxford and a number of cultural partners. So I've been working with Punch Records here in Birmingham and the artists who you're going to meet in a short while as well. But I'm really thankful for my Oxford Massive. You see they are doing a hip-hop reference. So we're in my Oxford Massive. So we've got our PI, Professor Catherine Cole, but also Katie Terry's here and a number of others. So we're glad that they are here too. Now, the format for the event evening is that we're going to have about 20-25 minutes performance. After that, then we're going to have a Q&A, and it's not just a Q&A of you just simply asking this question. This is part of the research and development, so really we'd like this to be a conversation, and this comes back to why you have been invited. All of you, we feel, are talented, uber networked, we hope, but certainly skilled in a range of languages yourselves and in a range of creative industries yourselves. So with those hats on, with those experiences, please respond as much as you like in terms of feedback to what you've seen, what we were trying to do, and in terms of the nexus between, if you like, the adaptation of this Russian play through hip-hop theatre as well. So we really hope the Q&A will be a conversation and a dialogue.
Briefly, so that you know roughly what you're seeing, we've had 2 creative responses to this play, Oxygen, the new Russian play, as Rajinder said. We have sort of adapted it, so you'll see bits of the original play. You'll probably recognise those as the bits where it says Oxygen, or refers to the 2 characters in the play called Jordan and Jordan, a young man called Jordan, a young woman called Jordan. And we've sort of translated it, as Rajinder said, from the original into the language of hip-hop. There is a second strand of the work, which is the stories of the hip-hop artists. I interviewed them and we wove their testimony into the play, so you get to find out more about the people who have adapted it as well. So you'll recognise those 2 parts sitting together. Briefly also just to say that, of course, this is a sketch of it's a concept idea, it's the concept. We're presenting extracts, track 1, so the play is written as 10 tracks from a hip-hop album or from a music pop album, which we put into hip-hop. We show track 1, we show half of track 5, and we show something from the end of the play. So it does feel a bit fragmented, that's why, because we're not showing you the whole thing. We're showing extracts. We've recorded the work that we did, and the hip-hop artist is singing over that. And finally, the original play tells the love story, a very tragic love story of these 2 characters. We've called them in English Jordan and Jordan. It ended up where we're only mentioning them briefly, so you may feel like, oh, who's this suddenly? Oh, it's Jordan, this young woman called Jordan. Okay, I haven't heard about her before. That's because we're just showing you little bits of the play, so sort of, I guess, bear with us. We can explain more about that at the end. But in any case, you now know that there's a young man called Jordan, a young woman called Jordan, and you're going to find out more about them. You can follow the lyrics on that sheet if you want to. I quickly double-check my sheets and make sure if there's anything else you must know. But as there appears to not be, we will begin. We hope you enjoy it, and we look forward to hearing what you made of it. Thank you.
About to provide you with the 10 precious tracks coming from our album, Oxygen, the 10 Commandments, official movements. We're doing it for culture. Have no fear, the tunes are here. Let's get into it and spin the first track. This one's called The Dance.
Yes. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not kill. But it comes in like man's death nowadays. Lost in streams and audio plays. See, I knew a man stuck in those same ways, and he switched up his cards and took a life for trade. Now, of course, we can point the finger and say that he's to blame after all. Thou shalt not kill. But you see, Jordan was named the killer of 4 blood spill. You starved him on oxygen, threw rocks at him for fills. See, I knew a man, Jordan, that killed. He went back to his yard and blazed. Danced to the music, skanked, one man raved. But his movements were off, staggered, strange. What leads you to dance if you're not a dancer? Gonna tilt your environment, jams, violence and cancer. iTunes is the answer, Spotify is the course. Cause they time us for music like they used to break the laws. Thou shalt not kill, of course, unless you're led by force. Unless they kill your freedom first, and death's the only source. Source of power, source of pain, source of light that lit the space. Source that led Jordan to erase the woman that took his name. And now you dance like your body's been set alight. Just the killer mind. Is he a slave to the music, a slave to the times? Is he a slave to the country? I see the strains in his eyes, I see the strain in his movement. Balancing burdens, his flow holds more weight than the average person's. And sometimes I wish that he would wait before he acts, because the act of his performance only makes the season worsen. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not kill. When you only have your soul to fill, your soul to fill. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not kill. Yo, is it better to be a saint or a sinner? Ruthless or a killer? When you're a guy that couldn't figure. It's easy to lose yourself in the statistics trigger. Why if you can never change the man in the mirror? Did you hear about Jordan labeled as violent and thuggish? It's calm was the music Vince said that the girls love it. So when you dance, is it to the beat of your own music or the music of another, and you're just the sales puppet? And you're a guy Jordan that 2 steps after he started. Was physically alive, he moved like he was tortured. He kept it on the low, his face was distorted. If I introduced you, would you forgive and move forward? My man was named violent before the murder took place. Before he was denied a job for an exotic last name. Before he was perceived as a failure for not making the grades. But now was a killer because the makeup is shade. Now let him dance. Yo, ladies and gentlemen, what's going on? I want you to make the biggest round of applause for the next act. His name's Stanza. When I say Stanza, say Stanza, Stanza, Stanza. Yeah. Make him feel at home.
Yeah. Yo. In each person there's 2 dancers, the right hand and left hand, and both need oxygen. In a relationship you have 2 partners, one on either side who should both be oxygen. Should be philosophically brilliant, serving and giving their citizens pure. From young killers to promiscuous women. Hold on. Stop that a second. I've got a story to tell. I grew up in a basement flat in Shepherd's Bush in West London. My house was at one end of the Uxbridge Road, not far from Jordan, not far from Grenfell.
Whoa, hold on, man. We're meant to be performing music. Where are the bars? Like, we don't want to hear a story.
Have you lost your mind? Have you not heard of an introduction?
I'm just saying, we're here for
You
music.
just let me get on with this? Is that okay?
Do you think?
So I lived opposite of William Hill, where the drunks would congregate. Occasionally, they'd try and come down the stairs to my basement flat, where I lived with my mum, and try and speak to her. As I got older and a bit more street, that all stopped. I had to protect my mum at all costs.
Hold on, wait.
You again?
I'm just saying, now you've got me hooked on the storyline. I mean, what did you say to the drunks? Was you like, oi, leave my mum alone? Something like that?
You know how ridiculous you sound. In fact, I was actually younger than that.
Younger, like, how old are you talking?
About 5?
5?
About 5 years old.
Okay, let's try that again. Hey, yo, big man, leave my mum alone. Sound a little bit better.
Get up off the floor.
I'm just saying, man, it's an interesting story. I mean, how did your mum even react to you going on like that?
Obviously, she backed me up.
Yeah, how?
She'd just say, did you hear what he said? And then they back off. Job done.
Just like that, eh? Sounds
Just
like an
like
average day in the end, but okay, cool. Continue, man. I mean, we want to hear more music, don't we? Yeah? Yeah, you're allowed to make noise. I mean, we're allowed to hear music, and we want to hear music from Stanza, don't we?
Yeah.
Okay.
Since you
DJ,
rudely
just press
interrupted
play.
me, I'm not doing anything.
Just press play, man. You can't. Come on, let's go.
In each person there's two dancers, the right hand and left hand are both need. In a relationship you have two partners, one on either side who should both be. Politicians should be philosophically brilliant, serving and giving their citizens pure. From young killers to promiscuous women, the general feeling is really that we need more. In each person there's two dancers, the right hand and left hand are both need. In a relationship you have two partners, one on either side who should both be. Politicians should be philosophically brilliant, serving and giving their citizens pure. From young killers to promiscuous women, the general feeling is really that we need more.
Okay. That wasn't too bad. Make some noise for Stanza. Not too bad at all. But, if we're out here telling stories and getting to know one another, might as well tell my story as well. So, see, I'm from Birmingham. Anybody from Birmingham here? Okay, a couple people. See, I'm from an area called Erdington. Lived there all my life. Literally, still live there now. But when I was growing up, I was usually around my nan's house. Now, she lived in an area called Newtown. It was predominantly black and Asian people that lived there. See, it was the kind of environment where people leave their house doors open. You could go into anyone's house, bust joke. But it wasn't until I was older I was told it was a bad area. I think that's where I found my voice.
I'm still waiting for you to lose it. You talk too much. Anyway, back to me. My dad's a musician. He plays jazz, plays blues, but my mum and dad never made it. So I never really spent that much time with my dad. Although the music was always there, I wasn't really that interested in it. I wanted to be a footballer. Yeah, man, that's definitely what I was gonna be.
Definitely heard that story before. I mean, every guy wants to be a footballer. See, there was no one really musical in my family. It was just whenever I heard music, it would remind me of family time. Do you know what I mean?
Kind of. I mean, my first memories of school was shit. I went to nursery, And then I remember being told one day, okay, you're going into reception now. And that day, all I remember is having the shit kicked out of me. A couple of boys kicking me on the floor. It's crazy. Then my mum took me out of that school straight away, put me in a better one.
See, I didn't really have any of those issues. I mean, I had an older sister, she always used to look after me at school. It was crazy, because when she was a teenager, she got to see the whole culture just unravel before her eyes. I mean, imagine seeing the pioneers in their first floor, hearing the DJs, hearing the clashes, people go back to back, even pirate radio and things like that. She had the biggest recording selection, man. I was just living through her eyes, really.
Your sister sounds pen. In fact, is she on Instagram?
No.
Tell her to follow me, innit? My secondary school was Catholic. Black kids there, you're in the minority. So you weren't allowed to have skin fades. Everyone knows that's your go-to haircut as a young black man, to make you feel good, give you your self-esteem. We weren't allowed patterns in our hair either. I can kind of see why, but no skin fades. Surely that's discrimination.
Can imagine your hair looking a little bit mad still. I got picked to go to a good 6-1 in an area called Four Oaks just past Surrey. I think that's when I noticed how privileged other people were. I mean, there were kids just about touching 17 in BMWs. And then me and a couple of friends barely afford train fare.
Know them ones. We used to actually jump the barriers and jump on the train for free. I remember people saying stuff about my hair. Being in the minority, I guess they weren't used to it. If I let it grow out for a little while, they'd say things like, "Hey, microphone head." Start singing into my hair. At the time, I didn't really realise what they were having a go at before.
It's something that you can't help.
Something that's unique.
Yeah, I hear that.
But I guess you grow thick skin. You learn how to give it back.
Definitely.
See, I think a lot of that stems from black history, or lack of. See, when I was at school, we learned about Henry VIII and all that sort of stuff. And then it came to black history. Slavery. I guess without any further education, you kind of subliminally think that's where it starts. And I think everyone else does as well.
You know what's mad? I mean, I remember the look that a teacher gave me, because I was in the same situation, and I was kind of like, "Yo, miss, so what happened before slavery?" And she looked at me like, "That ain't on the syllabus. Don't ask me no questions." I was just like, wow, okay, what about that? But I didn't really say it to be shameful or disrespectful. I just genuinely wanted to know, what were black people doing before slavery?
See, that's the thing, you don't actually get knowledge of yourself. Because you're in the minority, the history that you're taught, it's not necessarily beneficial to you. In fact, it's probably detrimental to your self-esteem. See, my secondary school was regimented, stiff. Shoes had to be polished, had to wear a blazer, had to have a tie on. See, when you're coming from that environment to your normal one, makes you stand out like a sore thumb.
Yo, fam, look at those shoes though, man. Polished and everything. Mad. Who are those?
See, that's what I'm talking about. You kind of have to have self-pride, self-belief. I had to be bilingual. You get me?
Suppose you have to be careful. I mean, when I was a teenager, that's when I came into my own personality. I'd spend time just watching the latest blogs on YouTube for beauty and self-esteem tips. I think Jordan was one of my favourites. Hi Team Jordan, today we're going to show you my top winter lip line shades, but remember, these styles always work best with your smile. Best way to stay out of trouble, to stay in. I mean, I had a responsibility, getting from school, not getting into trouble, because I had that freedom, and I could have easily been one of those kids on the road.
Your mate Jordan, or whoever she is, sounds corny as hell. But regardless, you gotta hold your own. Take pride in yourself.
What up, what up? It's your boy DJ Ghost, and look, man, as a male, we can't call nobody if fucking our lights get turned off. We can't call nobody if we need some gas money. We can't call nobody if our rent ain't paid. Because at the end of the day, as soon as we do, we not looked at as a real man. Nobody gives a fuck about what you're going through. It's no way in hell I can pick up the phone and call my best friend and tell him my wife just cheated on me with the neighbor. Best friend or not, this nigga will laugh at you. And if he don't laugh at you on the phone, he gonna do it when he get off the phone. It's hard for niggas to reach out. Anything that's hurtful, we keep it to ourselves. Nobody wants a weak man. Your mom don't, your girlfriend don't, your sisters don't, or nobody. And males start feeling like this around 14 or 15 when you start becoming a real man. Because at 15 years old, you're 3 years away from being an adult. It's hard for niggas to talk to anybody. We keep shit bottled up because it's the best. You ain't gonna do nothing but look down upon me instead of trying to help me. Or discredit me as a man instead of trying to help me.
The people who died in this
In each person there's two dancers, the right hand and left lung and both need oxygen. In a relationship you have two partners, one on either side, you should both be oxygen. Politicians should be philosophically brilliant, serving and giving their citizens pure oxygen. From young killers to promiscuous women, the general feeling is really that we need more oxygen. In each person there's two dancers, the right hand and left hand and both need oxygen. In a relationship you have two partners, one on either side, who should both be oxygen. Politicians should be philosophically brilliant, serving and giving their citizens pure oxygen. From young killers to promiscuous women, the general feeling is really that we need more oxygen.
So, the next track we're going to do for you is track 5. Do not give charity in the sight of men, to the intent that ye would be seen of them. See, Jordan was always charitable. She wanted to inspire others. That's what this track's about.
Why is it always about Jordan?
Problem?
This girl's doing my nutty.
I don't really see the issue. I mean, we talk about your Jordan all the time.
Your Jordan is a narcissist. She only does it for herself. She don't care about anyone else. She just wants attention.
Is that how you really feel?
That's how I really feel.
Cool, let's take this to music, man.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, check it. Jordan forever did good deeds. She captured it and put it on her social feeds. No more attention, the mentions were organic. Put it to inspire others to have a heart across this planet. She didn't have a clue on algorithms or mechanics, watching all the data she went out. No more her advantage. The favor she did in private or perceived as a sin. She's not praised for her deeds. She's not equal to him.
Your speech has got to be a joke, I mean I don't agree. Jordan's fishing for dopamine. The inner soul can speak. It would reveal this narcissist for the globe to see. Everybody can chat, few take action. Hardly a massive sacrifice, tapping captions, accompanied by back snaps to amplify reactions. Now who's paying attention to that? Crap, and they're likely to hear the cell door slam. I hope a slag is a slag. You branded us trash, only worthy of adoration when handing out cash. Yeah, she's paying but can hardly prepare bangers and mash.
Yo, your attitude trash. Hold up, wait. When were you to brand when Jordan lives on instant noodles and Google's tutorials? We know he's hardly a handy man. You see, society seems to be stuck in this misogynistic state. When's the last time this guy fixed himself a little plate? All his movements are bait. Now the girls on the way. Told his wife his dick slipped, she was just a mistake. Does he not believe in karma? Maybe Maybe you have some father is the reason for his honor and attention he craved. It's 2018, we're making me sexually liberated. But if Jordan told you a list, you'd be winning praises. Wish he worshipped love the way he praises bloody trainers. Picked tonight, but the first one to press the button, tired labours. Now it's time for the finale of our album, Oxygen. Hopefully you guys enjoy.
The people who died in this happened to
If you know it by now, you can join in the chorus as well. Yeah.
Hey, yo.
Yo, trying to breathe and I urge you to imagine the air full of smoke and the smell of burnt cladding. No magic carpet like Aladdin's for the little lad on the top of the flats. Mum and dad panicking. Mother's mourning in the middle of the night from the stabbings. Still can't believe that it's happening. The other night she had a dream he graduated. She was clapping and took snaps while he threw his hat in the air. I know a girl who can't stop and compares herself to Instagram models cause we brush with the air. So she uploads pics of just a bust of her hair and goes to dinner with double clickers like love is prepared. Young black brothers are scared, so keep modified handguns under the stairs. Since buns in the oven, they were underprepared. Struggling to keep their lungs full of air is quite clear. In each person there's two dancers, the right hand and left hand, and both need oxygen. In a relationship you have two partners, one on either side, who should both be oxygen. Politicians should be philosophically brilliant, serving and giving their citizens pure oxygen. From young killers to promiscuous women, the general feeling is really that we need more oxygen. They say that I exaggerate the truth when I tell them we consume the most contaminated foods, gassing them like fascists who eradicated Jews. I have to combat irrational passion and point to the amount of facts that haven't made the news. They found him hanging full of news, the victim of cyberbullying. So through school he was techie but couldn't hack the abuse. We've been chasing these coins since Mario. They know our settings don't support academics with to wear marigolds. Get for the things we don't condone or get self-employed, selling a man a dough. We choke on the smoggy air and try and stay conservative despite derogatory stares. The face of Montclair, I've got beef cause brazen racism's not rare. In each person there's two dancers, the right hand and left hand, and both need oxygen. In a relationship you have two partners, one on either side, who should both be oxygen. Politicians should be philosophically brilliant, serving and giving their citizens pure oxygen. From young killers to promiscuous women, the general feeling is really that we need more. It's a struggle with monogamous relations. It's constant, sex in our faces. We're living in an age of make them replace it. Cause when love is painful, it ain't just the grazing. Way with a bodacious waitress and Mayday's Facebook. Use words to wait verbatim. Now she's gonna leave and his kids are getting taken. Hashtag me too, stressed about the British exit from the EU. Like where's it gonna lead to? How much cheddar we gonna need just to eat food? NHS already getting scrutinised, running out of bed, some suggest the meds euthanized. Check the incline of suicide. If facts are air, I guess we live the truest lie. There's two dancers, the right hand and left hand, and both need oxygen. In a relationship you have two partners, one on either side, who should both be oxygen. Politicians should be philosophically brilliant, serving and giving their citizens pure oxygen. From young killers to promiscuous women, the general feeling is really that we need more oxygen.
There was a girl called Jordan. Born in the midst of the 90s, she was raised in a small town on the outskirts of London. After graduating, she registered as self-employed and runs a blog centered on relationship advice. She currently has 21k followers, lost in the age of information.
There was once a young dude by the name of Jordan. He was born in the 90s and raised in a broken home in a gritty council estate in West London. He never finished school. He never went to college. He's a graduate of the streets, lost in the age of information.
These two Jordan and Jordan are people of the third millennium.
Remember them as they are.
They are a whole generation.
Remember them as you might an old photograph.
They are a generation that search for oxygen in the poisoned air.
This generation, upon whose heads a huge meteorite from somewhere in cold space is falling. Falling.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, that was prearranged.
He didn't like the colour thing. I thought it brought out his eyes, but that's what it is.
We're going to share the mic because there's only two of us. University resources. Well, first of all, can we have a round of applause, please, for our artists? It's been a real pleasure and privilege working with these two talented artists, but also learning along the way and collaborating. We can talk a bit more about that. We can talk more about that over the course of the week. So really, I want this now to be a space of exchange. One, us just kind of talking a little bit about the process, but also feedback from yourself, not just questions, but also comments and constructive criticism. Because as I said, this is part of an R&D, a research and development, and we'd like to develop this going forward as part of our project Slanguages and creating multilingualism. So Noah, if I could just start off with yourself, please, as the artistic director. I mean, what are some of the kind of challenges that you think we came across, starting with a very contemporary Russian play, and obviously reading it in Russian but then being translated in English, and then working it for a very contemporary medium, which is hip-hop theatre, new media references, and the now really. What are some, if you could just talk a bit about that process and the challenges along the way.
Sure. So I mean, this play really changed playwriting in Russia. After 1991, obviously the communism came to an end, and there was a new hope for a democratic Russia. And there was a young generation of playwrights who were at first ignored by theatres. And by the early 2000s, there was, with Ivan Viripaev leading the charge, playwrights who said, we want our voices to be heard. And obviously, 12 years after 1991, you can understand Putin was already in power. This was already the democratic hope had been squandered, essentially. Now the play, in its artistic form, is very unlike British plays. It feels like a play to me, it feels like a play that a British playwright couldn't have written in its original. So, for example, it's very philosophical at the end. You get 5 tracks about the story, the love story, and then the playwright kind of abandons that and gives us sort of philosophical reflections on what it means, and the 2 narrator characters start to spar in the original. So all of this we could use for our own material, but it's very, in a sense, very unconventional in that way. Another example is the characters are described. The male character, I think there's 1 word of description about who he is. He's described in the original as this kind of bandit or this thug, and that's it. And the female character, you get a bit more description, but it's also a one-liner about what she's like, very little. So we've run with that, and we've decided we're going to elaborate on that and give more detail, flesh out who these characters are. So that's a sort of decision to go further away from the original. But yeah, these are the things which completely disrupts the conventions that we might be used to, are a challenge.
Thank you. Sanity, if I may please. So, what's the relationship between Stanza and yourself as artists? How did you know each other? And for both of you then, what were some of the kind of challenges and possibilities when we presented this to you?
I think we just got to know each other. I think I did a gig in Leicester, which is where I went to university, and then Stanza just happened to be there, and just connected through music, really. But yeah, I think the biggest challenge would probably be time constraints. As an artist, when you are doing a live performance, you usually only will really perform tracks that you're really familiar with or you've had a long time with. So I feel like the biggest challenge for myself was only just having like a couple of days to write and then memorize, which is why I had to reference to my phone quite a bit, and which is why we went and recorded the track, just so you guys could actually hear it clearly rather than hearing us like just mess up lines upon lines, because there's a lot of context in it that we wanted everyone to grasp, and that's why the lyrics were there as well in front of you guys.
Yeah, definitely. I found initially the translation of the play quite difficult. As Noah said, it's quite philosophical, and there's layers and layers and layers of stuff there, and it's deciding what you wanted to take and what you wanted to leave out, and also so that it was clear to you guys what the actual story was as well. It took a lot of brain power to actually do that. And then on top of that, it's then writing it in lyrics, and then sort of, I'm quite a technical rapper, so I like to put multi-syllables and all that sort of stuff in there, so that's hard. And then making the beats as well in 10 days, it's intense, but really enjoyable and really stretched me.
Thank you. Yeah, I really enjoyed the process of learning about the different kind of registers, but also the stylistic ways in which you kind of brought this to life and adapted it for yourself. The floor is open. Conversation, comments, questions if you want to, queries. So please, let's Paul.
Is it?
Sorry, Sasha.
I was just asking about a drink. Can we drink now? We have to wait again. If we are good, you give us a drink.
Yes, that's it. Just wait a bit longer.
Yeah, okay, I'll be good. Paul.
Paul.
I had the same question.
No. There's something about ECU and academics and drinks. This is why I went for soft drinks.
That was my question. Have you not got any wine? I wanted to know about, you were talking about time constraints, but I was interested in how you as artists already prepare your lyrics. Do you always pre-write, or do you have a bit more sort of improvisation? And if so, how does that relate to having to do a kind of typescript really when you're doing it in a play?
Are you talking about the actual lyrics themselves, or actually the dialogue?
I suppose both really. I mean, are you always sticking to scripts, do you think, or are you going to do you have a bit of leeway?
I think if we do go to production stage, then I think we would probably make it really loose, because in rehearsal I think we had a lot of fun with that, and we were changing it around each time, and it's just really natural because the characters aren't too far removed from, you know, elements of who we are. But yeah, lyrically I always write my stuff down anyway, so yeah, I never ever freestyle.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what you said that hasn't been touched upon. Yeah. I mean, I do tend to as well write a lot down. In terms of the dialogue, though, the way that came about is one of the days me and Stanza literally just like asked a few questions from Noah, and then we just kind of dived into a conversation for like an hour, which Noah recorded, and then he actually took parts of like our actual lives and then kind of weaved it into this bits of banter that we had between ourselves as well. That's just me and Stanza's characters, and just, you know, by knowing each other and not taking offense to anything that anyone says. But yeah, it was an interesting process.
Laura, and then we'll come to the... Okay, Laura. We'll go to Laura.
I've obviously got a million questions, but so the first one is, it's an R&D then. Are you looking to take that to a full production?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll be right.
And then the other one's like obviously much longer question. It's not about wine either. So. At least the you stuff. I'll never drink that. The content of the play is interesting to me because I actually lived, I mean, you know this, Rajinder, so I lived in Russia in 1990.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so I was personally living in Russia, I was a genius. So I was at the beginning of perestroika, and so we were 20 and being around young people and in what was then, they were anti-communist, and we obviously thought communism was brilliant because we were living under Thatcher. And then Pidgin came along, you're like, oh my God, you can get worse. And so I watched all of this and actually the rise of fascism within the Soviet Union started literally as perestroika died, and you had young people that were what we would perceive as right-wing actually here, but you can kind of understand why. So it's really ambiguous. So, but I think there's some really interesting parallels in what you were both talking about as your characters within the context of your art form, within a historical period actually, which would seem to be completely removed, but it's not. You know, there was that thing about there's more that unites us than divides us. There were some really interesting parallels, and so that was more of a kind of comment, or if you felt that. But so also, how do you as artists, when you create your own characters, how do you respond to the fact that these characters have been written? Because in my head, that's a translation as well. So you're navigating a translation, not just linguistically, but artistically.
I think the main thing that we did was kind of sat down and we brainstormed. So the first few days we actually just looked at the original script, and then once we brainstormed and like bullet pointed about what we would see the main characters as, because there wasn't really much there, so it made it a lot easier as well to then create. So we took down some main points and then kind of imagined a modern day version. So it took a few scrolls through Instagrams and socials to think, okay, yeah, I think this is the kind of girl that Jordan would be, your typical glamorous Instagram model kind of personality. And then, I think we just built from there. But luckily enough, the script did leave a wide gap for us to then go forward and create. So it was helpful in that sense as well.
Yeah, that was absolutely the process. I think the translation, once we understood it, was almost seamless. It was just like, yeah, I know someone like that. I know a few people like that. And they were just templates to sort of draw from, and even your own experiences as well, that just really fit the character, and it just, everything flowed after that.
Yeah, it really felt, and I'm sadly never got Russian literature, so it felt kind of very natural.
Yeah.
Even the topics that were brought up in the battle, linking similarities between what was spoken on and what we wanted to discuss as well and bring forward. Because the playwright is so, is almost like unapologetic. He just says things how they are and just doesn't care. And we says that that's quite like similar to the language of hip hop. A lot of hip hop artists use that as their escape, and they're not afraid to say things that might clash against, being PC, or it's just very straightforward. So that helped as well.
Yeah, I'll add to that and just say, it kind of fits into our styles of writing as well, because I think we both do a lot of social commentary, and it just opened up the floodgates really to talk about a lot of relevant stuff that I've probably been wanting to say for a while anyway. So yeah, I enjoyed that.
Can I just chip in one word as well, please? Thank you. There's really interesting points about it, because I think with a lot of Russian plays, it sometimes happens that audiences here kind of perceive them as being about this other place, so maybe quite extreme politically. But here, and this was written in 2003, it feels like actually the playwright, if anything, was sort of prophesying what the younger generation was going to feel here now. What was very extreme in Russia there, but now we have a generation who saddled with debts, there's unending austerity and all of these things. So it really feels as though there's that connection across time with what he was describing there and what's happening here.
That's what Palak was to answer that. The bit about Spotify was really interesting, because when we were in Russia, MTV was, we obviously had MTV in England, but nobody really has it in Russia. So everyone, when MTV started streaming, what everyone wanted to do was American. So their ideas of women and female glamour we were really disappointing, because we were students and goths, so they were like, they just looked miserable all the time. So from what they perceived as Westerners, they were all the women were really disappointing, because I saw Dr. Martens and jeans. So they were like, where's it? And it was really interesting, that whole kind of thing around the platforms that we're talking about now. We're still a platform then that most people are getting their idealised images, particularly beauty, and about, it was Levi, this is how old I am, Levi 501s, as about everyone wanted, was Levi. So that's your currency. You didn't use money, you used Levi's.
Sasha.
My name is also Sasha. Sasha, not from Russia, with the accent sounds a bit.
Okay, cool.
First of all, fantastic. Idea is amazing to actually take events, Kisonic, and move it into the hip hop theater. So, brilliant. I don't think you could find a more relevant way of how to move, as you say, that despair that they are describing. Because, you know, as you said, you were saying, the 2000s in Russia were horrific. Because it was really 90s with Yeltsin that kind of gave birth to Putin. And Yeltsin was disaster. He was a drunken moron who destroyed the country completely. You know, it's something like if Boris Johnson becomes president. What happened to you? You're going that direction. So anyway, Putin came as a result of that. You know, it was a birth of Putin, and then that was that generation. So the link you're making is just superb. And there's no really question, as you said, well done, fantastic connection. It's so well that you bring in documentary, because that's his theatricality, the sound, the lyrics, that's it. I can see the indication of the visuals as well, because he was playing a lot of visuals, you have something like that, so that's something where you can possibly go. But I think like you found the kind of cultural adaptation of this that's rich, and I think you will probably go a long way with that. So that was well done and fantastic.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Juice.
Very similar. First up is, up till this point, you know, I don't know much about Russian novelists, plays, theatre, or anything like that. And whenever I think of it, I think of something very slow, long, drawn out. I think of big books, like 800 page, you know, like whenever Dostoevsky and all these really heavy kind of things, and old as well. Something I think about Russian, I think 1700 and this, 1800 and this, 1917, you know, Bolsheviks and whatnot. So to get a contemporary view is really great. And also the second point is, so yeah, big up for that. And the second point is also, it's great to see works in progress, because theatre, rap, songs, music, all these things people don't get to see in general, the working process. People just get up and then they just make whole albums, and it's just magic and it's wonderful. So it's great to see sometimes behind the scenes more in the midst of the work. So it's really brave as well for you guys, because, you know, do I read a paper? Is it real poetry? Is it rap? Oh my God, is it okay if I don't memorize it all? It's quite nervous, I know that, because I've been there. And so I really appreciate that, and allowing us to see the work in progress. And I actually think we need to see more works in progress. That goes across the board, TV, film, to get the real scoop on it. So I really appreciate that in the midst of making something translate from contemporary Russia to us right now. So it's just a big up, really.
Thank you very much. Thank you. David, we've got about 5 minutes, and then I will allow the drinks. So David, so if there is anyone, please feel brave and do have a conversation with us, David.
My head at the moment is partly filling up with sort of teaching tomorrow. The series of Mikhail Bakhtin, very influential Russian critic and theorist, his idea of the dialogic imagination, which actually we're bringing tomorrow to reading Treasure Island. With its wonderful set of contrasts between, if you like, an official narrative told in a certain language, and then the language of the pirates, the people on the outside, who have this strange code that in many ways only they can understand. It's this completely separate world, represented by Stevenson as something, of course, sinister and disorderly and on the outside. So I'm kind of wondering, is it, with all the different linguistic codes you used in this, there's this fascinating contrast between the life stories that you're telling and the dialogue you have, and then that interaction with, you know, with what's screened, and then the contrast as well with the very strongly patterned, rhythmic language that you bring. Are you conscious that all of these are these different registers, different levels of language, all doing very different jobs for you? Is that a decision you arrive at consciously, or how does it arise?
I'd say, yeah, like musically, all of the samples that you heard, all the samples that the music was built off of, they're like from traditional Russian pieces, and that was to sort of help tie together the Russian aspect of it and hip hop, and just sort of merge them seamlessly. I don't know if that was noticeable, if that was audible, whether you could hear, you know, the Russian origins of the samples, and even rhythm and tempo and those sorts of things, depending on what was being said and what we were trying to convey. That was also very important. So the samples themselves, melodically and rhythmically, were chosen off the back of what we were trying to say.
Yeah, there was a balalaika. I hear the balalaika refrains do that.
What's that, sorry?
Balalaika, you can hear the balalaika
In the background.
refrains.
Yeah.
I think one of the things as well about the language, it's one of the points that we probably first spoke about on the first day, was that a lot of people from the areas that me and Stanza are from don't really go out and watch theatre. And it was really just to kind of bridge the gap between those two. We didn't want to just straight come out and just be like, yo, so we did feel like it was important to add aspects of the old texts as well. But also to show that hip-hop in itself is very poetic. You know, we touch upon a lot of interesting subjects in it as well, so we wanted to showcase hip-hop in a new light that people probably aren't used to as well.
Yeah, we didn't really want to alienate anybody as well. Like there's times where I'll go heavy on the slang, and then there's times where I'll take my foot off the gas on that, and just make sure that everyone remains engaged and maybe even open up dialogue between, you know, members of the audience. Some might be familiar with the slang, some not so familiar, some might be familiar with more of the academic side of the language use, and then you can sort of have a conversation and, I guess, learn from each other. I think that's really important. I think that's probably one of the lessons that's hidden in the text as well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think, thank you. That's a really interesting point, and I guess I felt, you know, it would be also wonderful just to have the lyrics and the music adapting Oxygen, but that the audiences might come away feeling like, oh, actually, we would have liked to know more about those people adapting it. I think in a production it would probably dovetail more rather than being sort of lyrics, then dialogue, then sort of music, but there'd be more woven into it. But nevertheless, there's sort of these ironic commentators giving their own story, commenting on it, that's right, sort of both totally integral to it and also a little bit separate from it. But we'd very definitely be happy to hear, whether now formally or informally afterwards, how everyone responded to that. That's one of the main things we've been trying, really, and interested to know how that worked.
And just very quickly on that, in terms of the dialogue, when we were doing the R&D and meetings we had, we also talked about the characters. What kind of characters are they? What's the mystery behind them in the play? And how do our artists want to adapt them? We also talked about the YouTube video, which is very much in your face, uses obviously very quote-unquote grown-up language, and so we were thinking about where do we place that, and how do these different parts come together as well. So yes, so along the way we made certain suggestions, and then these decisions were executed by the artists themselves as well.
Yeah, I wondered whether, like, as a piece of research bit, you had a target audience of who you want to see the piece. No? Okay.
Not at this stage. I mean, at this stage it was really for a kind of an invited audience to get feedback for development.
Because I was thinking, if it was to go into something that was like educational, it was for young people, it might be a good idea to like have workshops that kind of break down the musicology, like breaking down the fact that there is traditional Russian music in it, but also breaking down the context of what Russia was like, because I don't have much idea about what it was like, so I'm still trying to piece together who this horrible person was, or is, kind of, if he still lives through memory or whatever. But yeah, just having space outside the performance that would let me understand that first, and then I would have context coming into it, if you get what I mean. Yeah.
Okay. I think really, coming into this project, I had no idea with regards to Russian theatre. Like, I was just like, okay, wow, this is going to be a task. And then reading the script itself, I was just like, I don't understand this shit, to be honest with you. But as you delve more into it, you get more interested and you learn more things, and then you end up just being cultured a bit more than you were before you approached it. But I think one of the goals was, I don't know, I think Sanity would agree, was to sort of encourage more people like us from our backgrounds to sort of delve into Russian culture. I think you're really missing out on life if you're just into one culture and that's the one that you're accustomed to and that's all you know. I think you need to live a rich life. I think you need to delve into different sorts of cultures. Like, I'm always going to be hip-hop at heart, but there's so many other things that I want to learn about. And I think that's the point, is to sort of encourage people who wouldn't necessarily go and see Russian theatre to come and have a look. And sometimes the dangled carrot, so to speak, is the fact that there's hip-hop in it.
Can I through it? I think actually, I think it's a really good point because I'm looking at lots of live there. I was really used to be a student when I was just going to say something. And that's why I got to live abroad, it's quite a degree. But I do think whether the parallels to me was whether you knew that or not, they're all coming from a place of a system of oppression. And oppression is oppression wherever you are in the world. So I think that's what really came through was whatever you're fighting, and oppression, the oppressor becomes the oppressed, which is exactly what happened in the Soviet Union actually. The other way around, sorry, the oppressor became the oppressor, and that has happened in different communities across the world. So, you talk about Eastern Europe, and you can go, at what point has that kind of unfolded? So I think there is something that is really common ground that I could read into that without not necessarily knowing everything.
Can I add to that? I thought it was a really cool part in the piece where you said you had just started like going back over the history of your character, like where you found struggles in school, etc., etc. And then you said, "Oh, that means I must be bilingual." So for me, it was at that point when you like started to explain that almost when you start to understand your different identities, you start to understand that you have more languages to communicate.
Yeah.
So that was deep for me.
Thanks, man.
Thank you very much. I'm going to Paul quickly. And Catherine, okay. Is there anybody else? Otherwise, these will be the last two. Anyone else? This is the last call out, last shout out? Okay, Paul and Catherine, the last two.
Okay, just picking up on the R&D element for the artists, I don't know where you would normally perform, but I wonder what it's like. It seems very exposed doing it in this room, and I wonder whether that causes you to think a little bit more about your performance, because you've got this studious audience. But it seems a very different environment. It's not even theatrical, because we're not in a theatre space, we're not in a club space, we're not wherever you normally perform. So I wonder what is it like to do it? Or what was it like?
Well, it's interesting, but I think that's where Noah really helped as well, because a lot of the times we'd come in and he'd just do like little theatre kind of warm-up exercises with us, and that really kind of made us see similarities between things that we did on stage as rappers that kind of crossed into what a lot of actors and actresses do as well, which is interesting. These certain stances that we do just naturally and not actually know, okay, that is what people do in theatre. In terms of this room in particular, it's an interesting one because it was intimate, but I feel like that gave us the space to really kind of see reactions and yeah, just to interact and see what you guys thought as well. So yeah, interesting overall.
Yeah, the room's definitely different. I think the strangest gig I've ever done was in a bike shop with a band, and it was probably even smaller than this, and I was more or less back against the wall with people at my feet, more or less. So good training for this, I guess, but it's much harder to perform, I think. You might not think it, but when it's so up close and personal, it's really difficult because I feel like I'm spitting into your souls, which is good in a way, but it's not normal for me. Sometimes if it's packed, you don't have to concentrate on anyone, you don't necessarily have to make eye contact, and you can still do your job. But this is very different.
Catherine, please, finally.
Just one quick question. Did you consider putting any Russian words in?
we did talk about a number of how would we kind of make it more obviously linguistically global, if you like. And at one stage we discussed having names of friends from different parts of the world and maybe some of the snatchets or catchphrases that they said in an urban Birmingham setting. But then also I think we had to be realistic given the limited time, and obviously the actual kind of artistic decisions were by the artists themselves and how they wanted to kind of execute the piece. So all these discussions were had, and I suppose if we now develop the R&D into a wider piece, one of the questions would be, what would we gain by bringing on those Russian names in, or not necessarily Russian names, maybe these are these African names, are these South Asian names, given that certain areas of Birmingham were name checked, and what were we doing with that, I suppose. That would be my response. I don't know if anybody else wants to say anything.
Yeah, I think also that we're talking about the Russian word for oxygen, kislorod, that maybe that at one point that was discussed, it didn't kind of end up making it in, it could potentially, but this sort of partly responds to your point, and also other things have been said. I mean, I guess I love, as someone who loves Russian culture and literature, I'm very aware that it goes into this niche, and really like the idea that actually someone might come along and not realise as they're watching it that what they're watching is a Russian play, and they feel they're finding out about other cultures, and then discover that later and sort of going on that journey, rather than feeling we have to root them in the Russian original. But it'd be interesting to experiment with that, and whether that's another linguistic register that comes into it.
You've got a couple of Russian words in there.
Yeah.
In the samples, there's a couple of Russian words. There's
The music samples.
Yeah.
newbie. Newbie?
There's chorny.
What does that mean? Okay, so that was an accident, basically. Complete accident. It was just in the sample, and it just happened to be where the sample ended, but...
It ended up black.
Exactly, and it worked. It worked. And then there's the other one, newbie, which means don't kill, right?
Oh, yes.
In the first one, there's a sample, it's hidden, but it's in the background, it's saying don't kill throughout. So there's a couple in there.
Can I just add one more thing about names?
Very quickly.
Oh, because mine's Russian. Oh, is it? Come on, look. Laura's Russian. You don't know that?
Dr. Zhivago.
Oh my God.
I cried ocean on the love seat in the morning.
But Dr. Zhivago was in Boris Pasternak, and he was a band author. So actually, when I went to Russia, the thing about names is that's a Russian name in England, but when I went to Russia, most people my age didn't know it as a Russian name because the book wasn't available because he was banned as being against the regime. So only if you were kind of in the underground would you have actually had access to it. So nobody my age. So I go there thinking everyone's going to know who Lara is, and they're like, is that Russian? They didn't know it. So actually names have different meanings at different times as well.
Thank you. First of all, thank you very much all once again for coming out on this evening, and thank you for being part of the conversation. Thank you to all our partners that we mentioned at the outset, but particularly thank you to our amazing artists. So this is part of creative multilingualism, and hopefully we've shared some of you about the challenges and possibilities that are part of the creative process, particularly in the creative industries. The fact that we have people looking and sounding like us, adapting a Russian play, makes for interesting reading in itself. The fact that multilingualism is also a challenge and can be taken up through different ways, I think that's also a conversation we're having. Let's carry on that conversation over drinks. Thank you all very much.